Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Rose Punkunus, founder and CEO of Sudozi. And today you're in for a treat with our guest, Carlos Obando. Carlos is currently the Senior Director of Procure to Pay at Motive, where he leads the procurement function. He's one of the top procurement leaders in Silicon Valley. Been on the ground floor of several very awesome companies, Snowflake, Salesforce, and now Motive. And we're going to dive into AI from his perspective, both team, operational, and then we'll also talk about building these procurement teams and what's needed in this environment today. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you, Rose. Definitely a treat to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, well, before the show, we were talking about being an AI engineer, huh? wouldn't it be who knew, right? Like a few years ago, this would be the big thing. Tell us a little bit like maybe bring us through the last few years. What has AI purchasing been like at Motive? Where have you seen the procurement team get involved? And maybe we can start on the hot topic of buying AI for the company.
Yeah, first I'll probably put my hat on as a business, as a business owner for buying these tools, and obviously exciting time. A lot of these AI platforms definitely promise I like to call it cure world hunger or whatever you're trying to solve, and it's great for the business obviously to understand and see where these tools might be able to help them evolve whatever function they're working on. But now putting on my procurement hat, I have to obviously think about the mitigation of risk and getting the best business terms for the business, probably like any other procurement within software. But AI having its own, I would say, sprinkle, because it's such a new niche out there. And what I mean by that is that in general, there is two different buckets that I like to kind of bucketize the AI purchasing world. And one is, your standard enterprise level AI purchases from like a Google or like a Salesforce or some of the bigger companies where you already have an established relationship with that company and they just happen now to offer AI. And that's a pretty straightforward discussion, hopefully for your company, depending on your leverage, your spend leverage that you have with that company, because you already have a set standard there or baseline. I think the ones that, which is the next bucket, the ones that I tend to kind of have more of a concern with is the early stage startups, the ones that tend to promise all these different things, and it's hard for me as a purchasing professional to go and benchmark these things because there isn't another thing out there that does what they're promising. So one of the things that we've heavily emphasized here at the company is free POCs and ensuring that our customers or our stakeholders are really putting those promised KPIs or metrics to the test, right? Have the rubber meet the road, if you will, and ensuring that that when we have that POC completed, that we are aligned with the promises or the value that the tool promises to bring to the table. Um, the thing that also is on the benchmark side of things that's difficult for me also sometimes to understand is if a tool just is if an AI tool is very, how could I say, segmented in what they do,
Mhm.
it's hard for me to go out again and segment that. And sometimes they put a very inflated price on that because they figured, Carlos, you don't have any other tool that's doing that. And that is where sometimes some of the friction occurs with, well, again, let me do that free POC. And of course, based on budgets and also perceived value, I will probably come also with my own probable value estimate
Yeah,
as to what I think we should buy this at.
right. Makes sense. If you look back the last 6 months or 12 months between, yourself at a high level, between yourself as well as your procurement peers, what bucket of AI, maybe we'll start with usage instead of dollars, what bucket of AI usage is with those existing enterprises and expanding AI usage versus what percentage usage is with some of the newer players that are, AI native and exclusive on bringing AI value?
Yeah, it's probably around, I would say, probably 40% with a big bucket, I
Hmm.
would say like, your standard
Yeah,
Gemini that comes with a
yeah,
Google
yeah,
offering and
yeah.
your other big softwares. And then probably the rest would go to these smaller, platforms that are just spread across the business, whether it's
Mhm.
AI development platforms, or just, even within sales as well,
Hmm. Hmm.
conversational intelligence kind of tools as well. So, but I think that one of the things that I appreciate here at Motive is that we have a very good streamlined system and good collaboration with our IT partners to ensure that when these requests come, that the business is understands that these are being definitely looked at, and due diligence is happening, and that we are asking the valuable questions of, how does this bring that ROI, but also, is there something else in our current stack also that you might be able to also use before bringing this tool on? So, yeah, it's something that I also emphasize, and I also would hope that other procurement company or functions out in Silicon Valley do as well.
Yeah. And as you are getting approached by the partnership teams or sales representatives from these different tools, because every company is unique, what are the broad areas that you're getting pitched in terms of where AI can solve your or Motive's problems? And then what have you actually seen be successful at Motive at a high level in terms of the categories that could be solved, or other peers that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, so the one thing that, the one, always the one big picture is the productivity aspect of these tools, right? That, the man hour aspect savings, from, if you bring this on, it will it will help with the overall productivity of whatever you're doing. And, sometimes that, through the POC, we'll figure out that that is actually true, or we'll make an assumption, or a conclusion that it's not. So, I would say that, that is probably one of the big pitches. But also, it is also a pitch that I hear, is that, hey, by bringing this on, you will also, get rid of 3 or 4 other tools in your SaaS tech stack, and then we can do that. But that's obviously easier said than done.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a sales conversation, and then there's reality, right? And that's another, probable thing that, we when we do our due diligence, is that we definitely test all of these pitches that are given to us, right? And ensure that the rubber meets the road, right? And that we are buying the things that are truly going to deprecate, versus something that is just not going to bring any value.
Yeah. And have you, in these conversations, supporting your business stakeholders, what kind of conversations are you having with your business stakeholders to help them understand, what the requirements actually should be, what the success metrics, what those KPIs should be, what is the role of procurement that you see that's been successful in those POCs?
Yeah, I would say it's truly, one of the things that I preface, and, I have some great folks on my team that are really into the technology aspect. And what I mean by that is that they really do the research, as well as I do, what some of these tools are doing, so that when we are talking to the business, that it's an actual strategic conversation, versus just a transactional, oh, I just need to buy something.
Yeah.
It's more of a, yes, you want to buy tool A, and it could do, X, Y, and Z. But, I've also heard of tool B, or C. Have you considered those? And can we also bring these into the conversation, to maybe even have a quasi RFP, so that, when we do go and talk to your preferred supplier, at least we have something to fall back on with regards to, another tool. And I
Hmm.
want to be careful with the words that I use, but
We'll name these AI tool one, AI tool two.
yeah, exactly. But ultimately, you want to have a backup plan, because if you don't, then, obviously, as a negotiating professional, you don't want to lose all your leverage, right? You
Yeah.
want to make sure that you always, can tell the supplier, hey, if you don't play ball with us, then, understand that there is somebody waiting for you in the wings. And, in my case, 9 out of 10 times, there is somebody waiting in the wings.
Hmm. Hmm. And have you done like formal RFPs? How have you gone about finding those good alternatives to surface?
Yeah, actually, sometimes our business stakeholders are actually good at that. By the way, if this is because it's one of our, key, when negotiate or talking to a stakeholder, I usually ask, can we walk from this? How
Hmm.
critical
Hmm.
is this? How do we ensure that, that we are not stuck with this inflated a sticker price, and that that ultimately that we have to take it, if you will. So our business is good at saying, you know what, Carlos, there is somebody else out there, and I've also spoken to them. If it's an area or a category that I know of very well within the AI space, I'll say, what about this or this as well? Have you also considered that? So, um, but ultimately, it's making sure that we are not, buying shelfware, and ultimately we're not hoarding our SaaS at the end of the day with these
Yeah.
AI tools, because you can easily do that if you're not having these critical conversations with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, procurement and your team especially has this close relationship with the business that's onboarding this new technology, bringing it in, making sure they're tracking KPIs. Let's say, we're starting the POC, let's move forward here. I'm sure there's a little bit more complexity in the agreements, in the pricing scheme. So let's walk through, your experience and how any of the project work for bringing on a new vendor has changed or not with these AI POCs. And then would love to wrap up this part of the conversation with thoughts on forecasting, cost management, and CFO, what CFOs should know about what's coming in this AI spend as well.
Yeah, sure. Um, I think probably one of the key differences from our standard AI, software purchases when it comes to AI and the complexities is around, I would say, security, and ensuring that security is a top kind of priority here, because that is also because the space is so new, and some of these companies are A and B started companies, and maybe a few folks just working out of a room. It's key
Hmm.
for us to make sure that our security team understands and is aware of what integrations, especially if it's something that's pivotal, keep the lights on type of software this integrates into. So that's one thing. Um, I would say the other complexity that I'm seeing a lot with these AI tools is that it starts at a certain price point, right? So it's almost like they hook you in at a certain price point, but then the renewal will be significantly higher, 4x, if you will, if you don't actually look at those business terms. Now, you could also argue that's the same thing in any software purchase, but I think the AI space, especially with the startups, are trying to get those net new logos, and that they
Hmm.
will throw
Hmm.
these fantastic deals at you, right? And they'll seem like they're throwing the bench at the kitchen sink at you, but ultimately what is happening is that, if again, your business partners will get close to it, or as an old CFO taught me the term sticky.
Hmm.
The tool will get sticky, very sticky, and it'll be very hard to replace. And in that scenario, then you will have a renewal that will be, like I said, 4x or 5x higher than what you originally signed up for, and you just don't want to be in that scenario, right? Because
Yeah.
then that's just you lose all the leverage, and then you got to talk about having a painful conversation with the business or the supplier. So
Yeah.
I would say, definitely, to any procurement professional that's listening to this, definitely look at the T's and C's on those AI contracts, and make sure that you're definitely protected. I definitely believe in my caps as a general rule of thumb with all my contracts, but more so in this space.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving forward, if you were to summarize the velocity of these type of contracts coming through, the type of the bandwidth of the work that's required from your team and then your security colleagues, other colleagues around, what does that look like into 2026? And if you were to project that forward into 27 as well.
My gosh, I wish I had a crystal ball for that answer. You know, uh, I would say, our company is on an awesome trajectory growth, and growth is definitely a good thing. So I foresee that, our spend in this category will probably increase.
Yeah.
And, again, we will definitely flex the due diligence arm to ensure that, again, what we're buying is something that is either critically needed or is not being used again on
Mhm.
from a current stack that we have on the back end. But I think our team is has done a great job with partnering with also our legal folks, and again, as I noted, IT, and then also, our, since being in finance, our FP&A folks, to also ensure that, we are living within our budget constraints as well, because I think that's also a key important indicator to all this is, This is all, I would say, very elementary
Hmm.
business related topics that you got to make sure you stay within the bounds of your budgets, and that also guides your buying decisions as well.
No, that's absolutely right. And I'm going to use that as like this partnership with the different departments and with the different stakeholders you have as a transition to the next part of our conversation, which is building procurement teams from the ground up. And also procurement, what is a procurement team in this age of AI where you can automate certain data things, but there are certain things that are really not automatable, even using the best agents today, right? So I think one of the key things with successful top tier procurement teams is that business relationship and the creativity in when procurement gets involved, what information is surfaced to which other departments, how you partner with legal. So maybe before we dive into this section, let's rewind a bit. What was Carlos 15, 20 years ago, at Salesforce? What was procurement like there? And would love to just do a quick speed run through Carlos' leadership in procurement today.
Yeah, no, it's always good to jump into the time machine and go back and see where you've been, and where you are and where you're going. Salesforce enterprise level company. I was more on the operations side of the house, and I learned a lot of the operation aspect of things. Of if you poke your hole here, will it create a problem here? Kind of scenario. A lot of the vendor and delivery management aspect side of things, and I actually got to work with some great strategic sourcing professionals. And if you're there on this call or listening to this, I would say that they've been some of the also close friends of mine that I look to when I need guidance for something. But ultimately, what ended up happening at Salesforce is that I had an epiphany of, like, looking around me and saying, what did this look like from the beginning? And knowing the things that I know now, I wish I could go back and change certain things that are now causing problems now and at the time. And that's where I got inspired to say, well, let's see what a startup looks like. And I had the awesome opportunity of going to Snowflake
The
Computing.
startup called Snowflake.
Yeah, startup called Snowflake. I was there. I wasn't there. I was there for about a year and a half. Great experience. Again, got to meet a myriad of wonderful professionals there. But then I decided to move on and came to a company called Keep Trucking at the time, January of 2020, to a very solemn, empty desk. I was a party of one. In fact, I think my first week I got like 15 to 20 questions of what is procurement and what does procurement do, right? From all the folks around the company. I would say, starting your own function at your own company is a phased approach. I would say probably phase one is definitely understanding the landscape and understanding your stakeholders, and really, knowing what the needs are of your key stakeholders and how you're going to bring value, or how you're going to advance their agenda, right? From a procurement standpoint, and just also from a being a net new function and a good business partner standpoint as well. Um, I think from there, the second phase is starting to lay out the policies and the critical tools that you will need. Maybe one or two key hires, I would say, in your organization. Stay as lean as possible. I would say go with the flow of your business and the needs, and don't overhire when you don't necessarily need to. And then truly start bringing out those spend management platforms, like, so like Coupa, Sudozi, who
Mhm.
that brings that alignment and visibility to your spend. And then from there, you start thinking about the next stage, and that is being a strategic partner. And now that you've actually earned the trust of your business stakeholders, and that they see procurement as an ally in their day-to-day purchasing decisions. And you want to start to earn your street credit, as you say. And once you earn it, then you have the right to be at the decision table with those key leaders to say, I think we should do X, Y, and Z. And ultimately, procurement does that. In the end of the day, we advise. I always tend to snicker when I hear a procurement professional thinking that they're twirling the keys to the kingdoms, that they make the decision point. Procurement advises, just like legal does, in all these matters. And ultimately, we are there to call out those key risks and create those savings, and then ultimately again be that strategic partner. And then from then on, then which is a mature procurement program, you start hiring out your strategic sourcing folks. You start, doing the cadence on the QBRs and your vendor scorecards, and advancing the function as a just as a key part of the company ultimately. And
Yeah.
obviously the key indicator there is the savings and the business value that you bring to all your deals.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And how have you gone about thinking about talent these recent, months, this past year, as you're growing the team and thinking through the next phase of the company?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, and I'm brought in to interview key, folks for other departments, but I always, in general, bring this kind of methodology to my hiring process. Is that I respect folks that have gone through certifications, and I'll bring it back home to procurement, ISM,
Yeah.
certified procurement,
Yeah.
this, and textbook stuff is great, but I also look at more heavily or emphasize more on somebody's passion to do the work, because procurement, if you're not passionate about this, can be a very dry subject. And ultimately the willingness to also learn and also develop themselves, from experience. Um, I'm gonna probably embarrass him if he's listening, but Mike Rudolph on my team, who came with that passion and that willingness to just understand process and to improve and to build out policy. Didn't do that at previous companies, but
Mhm.
he's now doing very well. He's probably he's probably my right arm in procurement operations. And again, he comes to the table every day with that passion and that willingness to up level the procurement ops side of the house. And I think that to me is something that I look in anybody's interview to say, hey, Carlos, yeah, I don't have the 50 or I don't have the 20 years of experience, but man, please, I'm here to learn, and I am here to tell you that I will do whatever it takes to get the procurement function to whatever the goals of the company are at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah. It's like that grit and entrepreneurial spirit within procurement. the,
Yeah, because actually that's a great touch point too, because that's the environment that we're working in, right? We are working in that kind of scrappy grassroots startup, and you need somebody with that mentality and that yearning. And also, by the way, that yearning to also understand that this is a support function, and that you have to be Johnny on the spot, and that you have to be always attentive to your stakeholders, because here, at least, or I would say at an average startup, you're moving at 1,000 miles per hour, and optics is also a key aspect of procurement, especially if it's a new function.
Yeah. Um, Neighboring procurement, you talked about legal a little bit, security, IT, FP&A, accounting. How have you seen those roles evolving, either in their relationship with procurement, or anything, anything special you're doing that you found really works well from a relationship perspective, or getting a better business outcome on any of those teams?
Yeah, I would say it's constant collaboration, and it's you know that mentality that, hey, we can literally reach out over Slack at any given point and get answers to a problem or collaboration on whatever we're working on right away. One of the things that I love about working with our stakeholders in IT and legal is that they also want that collaboration as well, right? Because sometimes those teams, if you don't have if you have somebody else that doesn't necessarily share your vision, then you have an opposing magnet type of scenario.
Yeah.
But here we have business partners, and within those functions you mentioned, that are constantly asking, how do we improve this? How can we make this better? And it's not a selfish agenda that they're taking this question on. They actually do it with a collaborative spirit to say, procurement, what let's work on this together, because ultimately we need each other to make this thing function at the end of the day, right?
Mhm.
The last thing you need is for the business to say, procurement is broken, and it happens to be because by guilt of association, just you're not having a good working relationship with
Yeah.
IT or with your legal partner. So, um, so yeah, definitely we have our one-on-ones. We also have team members here that also have backgrounds or can understand the lingo, if you will, of the IT world or of the legal world. And I
Mhm.
myself as well tend to
Mhm.
profess that I tend to be am able to connect very well with those two facets. But I also have folks on my team as well that also do a very solid job of doing that, and it brings things to a professional, down almost to a quasi personal level too, because then now you're working with folks that you like to work with, right? And that's also always key with this whole
Yeah.
scenario.
Absolutely. If you, I'll ask you to project forward again in terms of org design, not just for Motive, but just technology companies, non-tech companies. Everyone's buying software, right? So as you think about the organization and the future of the workforce for procurement and your neighboring teams, what do you see? What type of responsibilities do you see being increased, decreased? How do you see that evolving on the team side over the next couple of years?
My gosh, this is where I wish you and I were on a live studio set with an audience of folks, because I would like to hear a poll on this. I think
Yeah.
I think the future of procurement. I mean, and again, if you want to talk about the future, I quantify that as something being like 5 to 10 years from now. I would say uh, it'll be very much more lean. I think
Hmm.
with the advancement of agentic bots out there and agentic AI modules, I fear for the job of a procurement analyst, because I think that those will be kind of absorbed into this. Also, people that are doing very transactional type of work, like
Hmm.
purchase
Hmm.
orders or things like that. I think that will be absorbed very well, very much so. I think the future of procurement looks like something like probably a three-person team, where it's the head of procurement, a strategic sourcing professional, and a procurement ops. And underneath them, you're going to have these agentic bots that are either going to be servicing the internal stakeholders, right? And
Hmm.
on the strategic sourcing side, they're going to be negotiating with other bots at other companies. And somehow, the human element of this will be to just review the work and see if a deal makes sense or not, and if a human call is needed.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, I think in general too, I think just the shift of the tech world will be a much leaner company. And I think I brought this to you in one of the conversations we had, is that I have a 9-year-old kid, and I wonder what that career experience is going to be like for her. What is how are you going to get your foot in the door at a company when so many things are being done by agentic bots?
Mhm. You
So
have your bot, your bot talk to the recruiter bot.
yeah, I mean, I know that we've talked about companies out there that already have are they're trying to get in the way of procurement with regards to supply chain agentic bots. And I think we've talked about how there's complexities to these processes that these agentic bots can actually do. But I also agree with the fact that there's also a human element to all this stuff, and that at the end of the day, you still need humans also to have those impassioned conversations when it comes to negotiations,
Yeah.
or have an actual, like, business partner that's an actual human versus an agentic bot within the business.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Some of the more mundane data entry work may go away, but really, at least in the near term, getting procurement to the table, that relationship building, that ROI creativity, I think that's, I haven't seen anything that does that super well yet. So hopefully that'll continue to bring procurement to the table and help have procurement be a bigger part of the business impact moving forward. So 30 minutes has flown by. Any parting words, Carlos? Anything else on AI sourcing, AI procurement, team building that you want to share as we wrap up?
Yeah, no, I think I emphasized some of the critical due diligences that I think teams out there need to be doing. I think I would say to my fellow procurement professionals out there, just stay close to the business, ensure that they think of procurement as a key stakeholder when they want to buy these AI tools. And I know that they want to move, they needed these tools yesterday,
Mhm.
but that it is critical for you to be a part of these conversations, because if you're not, then yeah, you could definitely run into some significant risk.
Yeah.
Um,
Great parting words. Well, thank you, Carlos. I really appreciate the partnership. I really appreciate you doing this, being able to share your wisdom out to the broader audience. And thank you for the time here today.
Great. Thank you, Rose.
Have a good one,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye.